What's up? It's George the Fragrance Apprentice, and back in the ancient times of the fragrance community, we used to build a fire once we'd slayed a bear or a lion or something of that accord. We would gather around and we would do something called a fragrance review. Fragrance reviews aren't actually as common anymore in the community because, well, that's your fault if I'm honest. You will prefer list videos. People usually watch list videos or that kind of content more. Reviews, especially when it comes to analytics and things like that, aren't as popular, unfortunately. But I still think that reviews are very important, and I think that it's part of the fragrance community tradition. And as I said in the interview with George Zaharoff, I do feel as though I'm a critic rather than an influencer and rather than some sort of celebrity, and this is really my bread and butter. So Aaron Terence Hughes, Tobacco, Oud and Vanilla. Lots of talk about Aaron Terence Hughes. You know, everybody's known him from either Chris's videos or maybe his own YouTube channel. I personally think it's an interesting and a sort of a risky move to be a perfumier and a critic or a reviewer at the same time. It's just a sort of an inner sort of fear neurosis that I have. I do filmmaking. I would never choose to review films or anything like that, because my worry would be that if I reviewed films and said this sucks, this is good, this sucks, this is good, and then I did my own film, then I feel as though all the chickens would come home to roost and point the finger at me and say, yeah, well, you said this about this film, but yet you're doing the exact same thing in your film. In my mentality of the world, usually those who can't do review, I would never dream of perfuming a fragrance or anything like that. I don't know how to do that, but I know how to translate that in the third person and a little bit more of an objective standpoint and go, right, well, this works and this doesn't work. I'd love to be a fragrance consultant maybe, or a fragrance salesman as I once was, but I would never, I just wouldn't ever be a perfumier, because I just feel as I wouldn't be good at it, with the exception, of course, of Citrusy McCitrus Face, which is the greatest fragrance that I've ever made. So Aaron Terence Hughes, a big name in the community. He talks the talk. He's bashed many different fragrances, many of your favourite fragrances, many of my favourite fragrances, but is he any good? Can he walk the walk? Now, this is the only fragrance that I've ever properly smelled. I've smelled once when a couple more when I met him, but of course I can't remember that. That was a very, very fleeting moment. He gifted this to me, and I think that maybe he had a discussion with Chris and said, what does George like? And they had a discussion, and this was the logical choice. Tobacco and Vanilla are indeed three of my favourite fragrant notes and accords. So first of all, let's just jump into the presentation. I really actually like his presentation style. I think it's very straightforward, very simplistic. I think it's very lovely and very interesting, and maybe he would want potentially more bombastic bottles to go with his bombastic style and personality. But even so, this is just very, very good and very, very solid and very eye-catching and really good. I really enjoy it, and for what it is and for everything like that, there's no problem with me. I think it's a great presentation. It's a 4 out of 5. So when it comes to scent, is it any good? And my statement is, it's fantastic. This fragrance is fantastic. The reason being, there's many different elements of why I like it, but I think that the main thing that I like about it, the thing that sticks out when you smell it, for me personally, is it does smell homemade. It smells homegrown. It doesn't actually smell as though it was manufactured on a large scale. It does smell as though it's one guy in his bedroom or in his garage, just making fragrances. There's a lot of very homely styles of oils, and the accords are very natural. Yeah, it smells homegrown, it smells real, and it smells micromanaged in a way, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Usually that's a bad connotation, but it's actually a very good connotation. Aaron Terence Hughes is a very, very bombastic, as I said, very lively personality, and I have that as well. And usually when you have a person who is very lively and very animated and very, very out there and very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Extroverted is the word that I'm looking for. Usually with that sort of energy, you can funnel it into one particular hobby or one particular thing, and for me, I believe that that's filmmaking and making videos. You can tell that there's been a lot of work put into this. You can tell that there's been a lot of drafts, there's been a lot of thought process behind it, just because there's many different notes and there's many different smells and scents, but they all work really well together, and I could imagine that at one point they didn't, but slowly but surely they have come to fruition and it works. So the vanilla and the oud is really interesting. How this is that it's kind of got the vanilla of Imaginary Author's Memoirs of a Trespasser, and if you haven't smelt that vanilla, the way that it's worked in is very sandalwoody, or rather it's very sandpapery. It's a very caustic texture. It's sort of wood chippings kind of thing, wood sawdust flying everywhere, and that's the sort of vanilla accord that is very similar with tobacco oud and vanilla. That with the tobacco, which is of course quite spicy and quite tasty in a way, you've got something very strong, very spicy, but very well grounded and just very good. One of the things that I really like about the scent is that although you have got quite a lot going on, it's actually quite a linear fragrance. It's very straight to the point, it's very straightforward. In that way, it actually reminds me of like a really high quality Guerlain fragrance. Guerlain, of course, they take very high quality ingredients. They have one straightforward concept that they want to go for, like with Spiritueux Double Vanille, like with L'Instant de Guerlain Eau Extrême, Rose Barbère, Tonka Imperial, all the rest of it, where they just go, right, here's a painting that we want to create and we just want to nail it. And we don't really need to go anywhere on a journey with it. We just want to create sort of like a fragrance tableau, if you will, a sort of still image, but put so much effort into that still image and into that one frame of painting. Just perfect that and then just go for it. Now, of course, naturally it does actually change a little bit, but I think that's less of an intention rather than it's just the natural progression of everything that's going along. But when you put this on, you will get a very strong, quite spicy, vanillic fragrance with, and the oud here is not barnyardy, but it's a little bit stanky, a little bit gnarly, but just on the cusp. It's not going, all the way in. It's very reined in, and that's just fantastic. Like I said, there's a really beautiful balance and a really nice portrait that's being painted. You're going to really like this if you are into oud fragrances that have a combination with sweetness. I'm a huge fan of Oud Satin Mood. If you're a fan of Oud Satin Mood and just the whole oud line, such as the original, the Velvet Mood, the Silk Mood, if you like those fragrances, I would really, really recommend trying this one. If you are just, a fan of things that have taken the resinous element of oud and then combined it with something that's a little bit more sweeter and tamer. Things like Tobacco Oud by Tom Ford, Oud Wood, all that genre. If you're a fan of that, then this is going to really, really go well with you very easily. I think that it's really well put together, and I think that the dude's quite talented. I think he is genuinely talented. I think he knows what he's doing. I don't agree with him on fragrance in general. I was very upset when he slated Rocas Man. Rocas Man is very near and dear to your heart. But when you have somebody who is that into something, and usually that passionate and that blunt about something, it means that they think about it a lot and they've got it in their mind just a tremendous amount, and they live for it and they breathe for it. And in that way, I do feel sort of empathy for Aaron Terence Hughes. But if this was awful and if this was terrible and it was sort of a whole sham and it was a complete fraud of a thing, I would tell you. I'd just be very open and honest. But I don't believe that. I believe that this guy's talented. I believe that there have been tries, there have been failures, there have been ideas, there's discipline in what he does, and it's just a great fragrance, and it's nothing miraculous, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh my god, I can't believe it, he's made a great fragrance. No, he knows what he's doing, and he just wanted to make a good fragrance. So scent, I'm going to give a 5 out of 5, quite honestly. So brilliant fragrance, really enjoy it. Projection, longevity, I'm going to give a very strong 4 out of 5. Just the performance in general, very, very strong, very good, very solid, but not an absolute insane beast of a fragrance. I get a good solid 12 hours plus. I get the whole day, but it's not something that I feel is too much and too gruesome of a burden whilst wearing it. It's just lovely. It gets in. It does the job. Gives you a long time to appreciate it. Projects really quite well, and then just fizzles out of its own accord. Overall, if you like the sound of the fragrances that I have mentioned previously, and you do like darker, woodier fragrances that have a twinge of vanilla sweetness, caramel, a bit of a gourmand kind of feel, then this is something that I would easily recommend to you. This is something that is very good to wear, very enjoyable to wear, and it's something that goes very comfortably with all of the classics in that genre in my collection already. So it's a great fragrance. I would recommend it, and I'm looking forward to trying more Aaron Terence Hughes fragrances. Anyway, hope that you got what you wanted out of this video. Hope that you got the information that you wanted. If you liked this video and you want to see more fragrance content from this channel, you know what to do. Just subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to be updated every time I upload a video, all of that kind of stuff. You've been on YouTube before, you know what you're doing. Right, anyway, I'm the Fragrance Sprays. Thanks, I will see you tomorrow. I'm out.